Hello and welcome to Down to the Core podcast with me,
guys?
John.
And me, Jacob.
And today our special guest is Anthony Chander.
Hello, everyone.
It's called you Anthony Chandler.
Yeah, a lot of people do that.
Yeah, you're probably a friend here, Chander.
It's just, it literally is friends. Everyone does that since school. Like, is it Anthony Chandler? It's just friends. That's done that to me my whole life.
But the main question is, have you watched Friends?
Yeah, all of it.
That's a good one.
We've all done something in lockdown, and Friends was what I did.
Oh yeah,
I can't join you on this one, guys. So I'll sit out on this one.
Oh,
you never watched Friends, bro?
No, I'm not really my thing.
Wow.
We can't trust John anymore.
Yeah, you can't trust him anymore. It makes something going to put him like, I don't get it.
Yeah, I'll watch when I get back, just so I can be trusted.
That's it.
No, the reason I ask is because obviously because he's Anthony Chander. And if you said, no, I've never watched Friends, because everyone goes Anthony Chandler, I've never watched Friends. People be like,
it's literally that. I just go along with it now.
Yeah.
Like, you just go, whatever you want to call me in it.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Wicked, man.
Go with it.
So basically, we've been obviously speaking back and forth. It's almost like we're just friends now.
Yeah, it's like click.
So if anyone doesn't know, so basically, Anthony has got his own gym in Dudley called Primal Performance. And it's got like a niche about your gym, because I didn't realise you have got the only gym around.
Around the Black Country, I'd say. There's probably one or two, probably in Birmingham, and probably one more or two more in the Black Country. But to be that specific with like strongman and sort of cover such a range of equipment, I'd probably say I'm like the leading in that sense.
Yeah, because so basically, like obviously, me and Jacob got gone down to your place, and we've had you've showed us like some of like your equipment and stuff.
And that was mad.
Yeah,
that was brilliant.
Yeah. So
how did you feel the next day? Did you feel soreness in like muscles?
Yeah. How did you feel, John, with the dumbbell, bro?
You know what? Yeah, I think I just felt like anything that like I start to do these days, I'm always going to feel like a couple hours after. But like, I think like the adrenaline took over. I think there's one thing I realise about when I come to your gym. It's almost like I've got no ego, but when I come to your gym, it's almost like I want to do this.
Try things.
I want to try things. But like
a lot of people are like that because they see on strongman. And they're like, oh, you got them stones, you got them big balls, or what. They don't really know the names, and they're like, oh, you got this, you got that, and they want to try it out, like, which is nice. You know, it's nice to give people that experience.
And it opens up to new doors as well, because you don't know. You probably like. I really enjoyed it. I was like, yo, I'm definitely considering doing some conditioning work after after my prep and stuff. So that was really fun.
Was you surprised how much conditioning it takes to do actual strongman movements?
Yeah, I think like
you realise it's not just strength.
Don't get me wrong. I think like obviously when you watch them on TV, I'm under no illusion that like it takes kind of like a technique and strength to get everything move what they move. But it's only when you get underneath the weights and you kind of have to respect how much like these guys actually push. You know, and it's almost like for a joke. It's like the way they just move these things is unbelievable. So
and they move it like it's like nothing.
Those guys are like 200 kilos, and they've still got the conditioning of like a professional athlete. You know, in terms of like someone who's got high conditioning. Those guys still have that high conditioning as well.
Yeah, and the volume of food you're going to consume as well is ridiculous.
It's twice as hard.
So what we'll get back to that later. So I think like there's so much that you can like obviously for us. So Anthony, so you know, so you've got the Primal Gym in Dudley. So tell us about you, or where you start from, or where did it all begin? Because
training, I think for me started with just the typical 90s stuff, you know, like Bruce Lee, Rambo, Terminator. So like for me, growing up in such a hostile environment when I was a really young child, seeing an opportunity to change my physical body was almost like a godsend for me. It was like, if I can be as strong as the Terminator, I can defeat anybody, or if I can fight like Bruce Lee or survive like Rambo. And growing up the way I grew up, and I imagine a lot of people grew up like this as well, like, and they'll be able to relate, growing up in a hostile environment at a young age just made me feel vulnerable. So taking away that vulnerability using martial arts or weight training or any form of training like push. Literally all I was exposed to then was push-ups and sit-ups, like it was just basic. But I started at a really, really young age, and I think it just come from that being so feeling vulnerable all the time, having a high sense of vulnerability, you know, at such a young age, and remembering sort of that feeling.
Is that so? What do you got? What do you actually say you would have gone through in order to feel that level of
like I spoke to you guys before about this sort of stuff. Like I think, like, to give the viewers an example, my first memory was phoning the police and telling them that I killed my dad, and that was the very first thing I can remember, like as far as I know. And I remember just being in reception when that happened. And my mom taught me to phone the police. I'm the oldest out of my 4 brothers. I think only 2 of my brothers were born at the time. And I remember my mom telling me how to phone the police, and told them, like, she was like, this is the address. And I remembered the address, like, and I just remember like feeling really vulnerable at that time. And in that particular time, we my dad come back. He liked drinking, and he was quite violent when he did have a drink. And I remember coming down to the kitchen because I heard lots of noise, and I remember just seeing him hitting my mom. And I ran up the stairs and I phoned the police, and I told them I've killed my dad. Like I didn't know what murder meant then. So I was just like, I killed my dad. And then I told them the house address and put the phone down. And then I went to the kitchen cabinet. The bathroom cabinets. You remember them like cabinets you used to have under your sinks? Not many people have them anymore. But I went in there and I took a knife out of there, and I waited at the top of the stairs. And my mum come up first, luckily, because now I wouldn't be here with you guys. My mum come up first, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm going to kill him." And she's like, "No, you're not." Like, and I just remember her hair being like, my mum's got really dark black hair, and it looked wet, like really dark. And I just remember her bleeding. Like, I just remember how dark her hair looked. And like, the police turned up. They come through the back door, which would be the back door, at that time. It was technically the front door, but we used the other door, so I call it the back door. But anyway, I remember the police coming, and my dad had this massive ratchet behind him, and I was watching them trying to arrest him, and he was fighting them off. And it was like, that was the kind of experiences that I had from a young age, you know. And looking back at that, like, what I really would say that upsets me the most about that situation is what was my mom going through at that time, to have to teach her oldest son, who was 4 years old, in reception. I think I was 4 or 5 years old, to phone the police just in case anything happened to her. Like, what would someone have to go through?
That's bizarre, that is, because I think, like, obviously when you're that age, you're kind of a sponge, so you kind of take everything what your parents give you. So it's like everything that you know, it's all from like our parents, and like obviously, you know, to be at that age and say this is your level of normality. And then was it like a long time before you kind of sat back and looked back at?
Not really, because I think things continued in that notion for a while. So I started seeing it as the norm. I remember talking to my friend's missus, who's a therapist, and she said, I really want to talk to you, like, because you've got a bit of an interesting background, and would you mind if I used you for one of my studies for university? And I was like, yeah, that's fine. And we was talking about it, and she was like, that's not your earliest memory, Aunt. And I says, how do you mean? And she says, well, how did you know the knife was there? And I remember there was an incident probably a week or two before. I don't know what my comprehension of the time scale was then, but I remember it was before, where my dad come back drunk and he pulled the knife out, and my mum was lifting, like, remember like the old sofas were wooden, and they used to have like the pillows that you put on there. They used to have the wooden armrests. They don't do them anymore, but I remember my mum holding one of them up, and like we're screaming, no, like, and I remember like that sort of thing. And then when my dad went upstairs and went to sleep, she went and snuck in the room and took the knife and put it underneath in the bathroom cabinet. And I saw that, and that's how I knew where that was.
Wow.
So it's weird. I mean, could you imagine if it actually folded out and my dad come up first and I actually stabbed him? It would have been his own fault technically, because I learned that behavior from him the week before. And like you say, when you're a kid, you're a sponge. So I actually learned how to kill someone from witnessing it. Yeah, like, it's crazy, isn't it? Like,
it's crazy when you're saying it, like, because you're saying environment. When I was 4, I was just running around the sofa, jumping around, thinking I was a Power Ranger.
I was still doing that stuff as well. On a normal day.
Just like
on the weekend, I was fighting.
But I think what it is, it's just like when you hear this stuff, like you get to go, that's not normal for a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
For a 4-year-old to witness that, because you would just assume, like I said, just running around playing Power Rangers.
Now I see my nephews.
Yeah.
And they're 5 years old. Well, they're a little bit older now. Sorry, actually, they're 7. I'm losing age. But I see my nephews and my godchildren, and my missus works with children, and I look at them and I think, you're 4 or 5 years old. I couldn't imagine that kid going through what I was going through at that time. That's sort of when I started realizing that that's not normal.
Yeah.
You know, it's normal for me, and I'm fully acceptant of that. It's developed the person I am now, but I just felt like that's not really normal. But that's where training started for me, because then growing up in the 90s, like Rambo, Terminator, Bruce Lee, you know, like local karate club at the local church, you know, and stuff like that. Like, you know, that was like fascinating to me, that I can actually physically change my body through doing exercise, or I can actually develop a way of beating up the bad guys. You know what I mean? Like it was.
Sorry, would you say because of what you've gone through, and that feeling of like that vulnerability of being able to, and like knowing that, like, you know what, there's somebody who could probably get me, but like now if I go and do this martial arts, I feel like I can protect.
Yeah.
Would you say that where it would probably come from, or?
Yeah, that's where it come from. Yeah, it was just it was like almost like, oh, there's an opportunity here for me to develop something where I can protect myself from this. You know, and I had other scapegoats as well. Like I had an looking back, it's so weird. I imagine we've all done this when we were kids. I had an imaginary friend, and I used to call him Garfield.
Yeah.
And when anything was going on like that, I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna come on, Garfield, let's go and hide. You know, and we'd hide, you know, like we'd hide behind the stairs, or we'd hide behind a sofa or something, like, and hide away from the violence, you know what I mean? And it's funny because my auntie, who passed away when I was really young, she bought me a teddy bear when I was born, and it was a little devil teddy bear she bought from the petrol station. I've still got it to this day. And my mom says, you used to call that Garfield. And I was like, oh, that's weird, isn't it? Like was my imaginary friend a demon? Was it a demon that was protecting me? You know what I mean? Like, and it used to just get me away from stuff, and that was my goal. Like, that was my escape goal. The devil made it easy for me. You know, God give me a hard time, and the devil give me an easy one. Maybe, you know. Wow. Did I choose the demon at a young age? I don't know. Yeah. So that was weird, man. It's really weird, and I think that imaginary friend, I think that develops later on in life to when we're just thinking in our own mind, we talk to ourselves.
Oh, right.
That little voice, you know, in that little voice, like, so 100%. That subconscious mind, I think that's where we develop it from. We just don't really remember our imaginary friends. I think I only remembered them because of the violence that kept it
attached to it.
There's always some attachment to it.
Yeah.
So I mean, I had loads of imaginary friends. I had loads.
And I think that vulnerability carried on, like where we were discussing, like, when I got to around 8 years old, I think I was at 8, about 7 or 8 years old, I was taken away from my parents in an airport. We went to Germany and we come back. The only thing I ever remember at Germany was Kinder Brennos. Like, I remember I had him in a Kinder Egg, and it was like one of the first times I ever had a Kinder Egg.
Yeah.
Like, which sounds weird because I was 8. I should have had a Kinder Egg before then, but we were quite poor. And like, I remember my mom struggling all the time. But anyway, we went to Germany, and it almost felt like a holiday for me, not knowing what was behind it. Obviously, my dad was trafficking people into the country at the time, and then he got done for a trafficking charge, and we was removed from our parents, me and my brothers, and because I was kicking off, I was the oldest one. I was like sort of fighting with the police, trying to get them away from my other brothers. They separated me for a temporary amount of time, and I remember my auntie coming to get me. And then my brothers went to my nan's, my mum's mom, and then I went there as well, and ended up with them there as well. But that was that was a distinctive moment where I felt that sense of vulnerability again. I felt like I'm on my own. I haven't got anyone. I haven't got mom and dad, because we look for our safety in our parents, don't we? Yeah. Imagine being taken away from them. You know what I mean? A bunch of strangers are just grabbing you, separating you from your brothers, and that was the first time I felt a sense of loneliness. In the sense that, not that I felt like, oh, I'm lonely, I've got no friends. I felt like I'm on my own in this life, man. And if you don't do it by yourself, no one's doing it for you. And I was getting that feeling at 8. Like, it was surreal. Like, I almost can feel it like now. It's like, it was like a sense of, it was almost a moment where I thought, I'm on my own. That's it. I got my own, and that's it. I just got to deal with everything by myself. So that was a distinctive moment for me.
I suppose, so I'm guessing that because you can describe that like so kind of vividly, that will never go away from you. That
no. My mum was later released,
yeah.
So we went back home, and I remember going back home. This was the original home. This is the home where I nearly killed my dad. And I remember going back home, and everything was moved because they raided the house as well. They raided it for files and all sorts of stuff like that. And I just remember going back and just feeling like we've been invaded almost.
Yeah.
And it was my first like feeling of a raid. So that was like a surreal experience for me. Like I was like, oh, they've moved my bed, they've moved my stuff, like Mom, you know what I mean? They've moved this, they moved that. And like I remember having this like cabinet, like in the small box room, and used to get like a little storage unit thing.
Oh, like an ottoman.
Yeah,
thing.
and on there was all my little like toys and stuff like in it, and I always used to have them really neat and in order.
Yeah.
And they've just pushed them over to like look in there to see if there was anything in there, and that was the thing I was most upset about. I was like, "Mom, they ruined my toys!"
Yeah.
Like,
oh bless you. Though.
And then like I remember my mom just like packing whatever she could because she was going to lose the house at that point. And they took the house off and everything, and then we was on the street. So it was. That was that was my very first experience being homeless. So we was on the street then.
So how long were you homeless for? Was it like for like a?
It's a weird one because it was like on and off. So what happened with my mom, from what she's told me, is that it took a long time to get her benefits and stuff like that and get help, and immediately they took the house. So as soon as they got arrested, they took the house, they seized the car, everything. We had a Nissan Sunny, and that's what we was living in. And then my mom rented a house, but she obviously couldn't afford to pay for it. She'd get evicted, and then we'd be moving to the next. And I remember like my mom just saying like, don't take too much stuff. I remember losing stuff, like losing toys and stuff like that, and losing clothes. My mom was like always like, don't unpack everything because we might have to move again soon, and like. And then there was times where we just slept in the car. Like there was times where we had to sleep in the car. It's funny because when I bought my house recently, my mom was so emotional when I was showing her. I was playing her up, and I was like, "Oh, Mom, look at this house." And she's like, "Oh, wow, Aunt, that's beautiful." And I was like, "Yeah, someone's bought it though." And she's like, "Oh, that's a shame. Like, but you should find one." Like, and I was like, "Yeah, I bought it." And she just melted. And she was even saying to my missus, like, she was like, "We used to sleep in a car. And now he's got two houses, basically, essentially, my mom's house and my house."
Yeah.
And she's like, "We used to sleep in a car, and like now look like what we've got." And it was a surreal moment that me and her shared because like she's obviously been through it as well with me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it was such a surreal moment. That was the first person I wanted to tell. I was like, "Mom, we've got a roof," and that's so important to us. You know what I mean? Even if it's just a car roof, it was something, and that really made me realize a lot about life. I think. As long as you got clothes, food, and a roof over your head, you don't need anything.
Yeah, and I think it's that thing like a lot of people kind of take for granted. But I think like they take it for granted because they've never been in the position that you've probably been in, or anywhere near to it.
Yeah.
But I think like obviously you telling your story about like obviously actually being there, it makes it like more prevalent, like obviously to yourself. But even when someone's listening to the story, that they may not grasp it as much.
Yeah, I remember that time we had a little bit of peace. We lived in like the back of West Brom area, Oxford Road. We lived on, it's knocked down there. They built a new police station there and stuff like it. And we had a little bit of peacetime, and then my dad come back out of prison.
Yeah.
And peacetime sort of ended again. Like, it was good at the start. It was nice having him back. It was like you felt like something was going to change. Felt like things were going to change. And then it sort of just started wriggling into its sort of natural behaviours and alcoholism and stuff like that. And we moved again and again and again. I remember just moving to like 3 or 4 houses with my dad as well. And then we settled at one house. And I just remember that house just being unsettled. Like it was like there was moments like that just kept happening, like the house, we just had violence there. My dad was kidnapped. He come back, like he ended up with a cut on his face, like where someone guys have cut his face.
Kidnapped? What happened then?
I don't know. Like he had problem. Like I remember, like he had some problems with some guys. They must have got hold of him. And they kidnapped him, and I remember him coming back, and I remember seeing him, but like he wouldn't turn the light on, but he had a cut down his face on one side of his face where they cut his face, and like he's got back. And then I think that thing calmed down because my granddad passed away. So it was like a really dingy time in that house. I remember we was only there for a few years, but I just feel like everything was escalating, going downhill. And I always noticed before every single raid, things were going bad. And like my granddad passed away and things calmed down a little bit then. And then bang, got raided again. And my dad was arrested again, gone. And then we lost that house again. Like we didn't own that house, but like once my mom couldn't pay the rent, just go. And then we went, and then we moved again. And the house we moved into after that, it seemed like again we was having our little peacetime. Other than me, I was causing the problems then, because I was like 14. I remember like my mom was just like, "You need to leave," and I was like, "What?" Because like I was just causing so much havoc, you know, like not even in a bad sense. I just wanted things that other people had, and I was seeking some sort of guidance and hanging around with the wrong people and that kind of thing. So I had a period of time, because I remember like the last house prior to that, when my dad got raided, I was around 14 years old. So not having that father figure there, and from around 11 to 14, for them 3 years, things were just going downhill. Like it was just a downhill spiral at that house. And then moving house again, I was just frustrated. I was just mega frustrated. And then like between 14, 15 years old, I was just doing my own thing. I was like, you know what, forget it. I'm just doing my own thing, man. Because like,
did you get to a place in your life where you just thought like obviously what was going on with your dad and like obviously around you was just normal?
Yeah, it's like it was just a grey area. It was almost like normal, but you could tell almost when it was about to just collapse. It was like you're watching a movie, and like they'd be all peaceful for a minute and then it'd collapse, and then it'd go all peaceful for a minute and then collapse. It was just you almost knew when it was going to come to like, oh, we're going to move again.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys game. Have you ever played Red Dead? Red Dead 2?
Yeah. Brilliant.
You know when they're moving to a different camp, like that camp goes downhill, and then this camp's gone downhill, isn't it? I love that game because I resonate with it a lot. It almost like that. It was just like it kept going down.
So was there like a
you had a sense
point, like certain bits where you kind of go where it's like clicks, you're like, it's going to happen, like
100%.
Certain moments,
100%.
Was it like certain moments where you literally just went, right, that's the sign, but it's probably either 2 days or weeks after. It was
just like it was coming close, man. You just had a sense, because we've been through it already before. So I just had a feeling something's going to collapse here, like this ship's going to sink. And the household's just hostile. Everyone's just like, it was just like you could just tell things weren't going to go. They were going bad. Like things were getting worse. And then I just remember like bang, raid, and it was just like them raids were like the shutdown of it, and then it was just start again. And then we was at our other address, and then it was almost like I'm 14 now, so I'm almost thinking I'm a man, which I was far from. But I was like, okay, I've got a bit of hair on my chest now, I'm going to do my own thing. Do you know? And I was really frustrated as well, because now I was getting like a 2 buses and a train to go work, digging out foundations. Basically, my first job was a labourer, and I was digging the foundations where they couldn't get a mini digger, but I was missing like NRA day at school and stuff like that, and all my other friends are going there and they're doing like, they're getting limos and stuff, you know, and their parents are paying for things, and they're doing like their last day at school and stuff like that, and I'm there going to work, and I'm like, man, you know, it was like really almost a rebellious stage. I felt like a rebellious stage, and I think my mom had the forefront of it because she was the only parent there, so I took it out on her, not directly, but it was almost like, and I feel bad now, like looking back at that, it's like, oh man, I put her through so much shit because I was just rebellious, I was frustrated, and then I was messing around, and she had to deal with that, you know, like, you know, anytime she got a phone call saying your kid's in hospital because he's ended up in a fight or something like that, or like I've, you know, got in trouble, it's just like she had to deal with it all the time, man. And looking back, it's like I feel bad almost.
I think like when you're, you know, when you're that sort of age, it's like you're kind of one-track minded, and you're not, because like I think I don't know about yourself, but like when you're like say 14, 15 or that sort of age, you're not really thinking about like family and how they feel and what you're putting through, because it's almost like it's all self. Because like, you know, you say you jump to that point of going, well, I'm a man now. So a man just looks after himself and does things. But like, but I can relate to that. Like obviously, when you get like to a certain point in life, and you say to yourself, God, I was like that because like I will see people now with things and I'll apologise from, and they'll go, "What are you apologising for?" I'm saying, "That thing, what I've done." But like, then I have to say to myself, "You was a kid, so you didn't know, you didn't know any different."
It's either you get humbled then, or later on you get humbled by yourself, by your own thoughts later on. Like you sort of reflect and go, "Oh, you know what? Actually, I was a bit of an ass then. I need to sort myself out. I needed to get myself together." And then I met my girlfriend around, I think I was 15 years old. Yeah, we've been together nearly 17 years. July.
Wow.
Yeah, so I met her. It was really funny. It was the first day I met her. I met her at West Brom bus station, and I was hanging around with a group of guys then, and they were all robbing each other. Like they were all drug dealers, and they were all robbing each other. Like they'd rob other drug dealers that they were dealing with. It's weird because like they'd know like it's coming as well. It's like it's like I'm going on holiday next week, and like the next thing you know, the house got robbed, and I'm like, you guys don't know it's each other. You know what I mean? Like, but anyway, we used to just go around robbing and stuff like that. Like I used to hang around with these guys, and I was the youngest in the group. Like. So I knew they wasn't going to give me anything, and we raided this guy's house, man. Like, and we took everything. I mean, we took this dude's jeans, we took his Levi's, man. I swear, like he had trainers, everything, like in it, and we was taking all this sort of stuff, like in it, and it was all like Burberry and that back then. You remember like Burberry stuff, So it was like, because I'm talking like this, man, long time, 17 years ago. So Burberry was in. So anyway, we raided this geezer's yard. We took all his stuff. And we took a Rolex as well. Like this guy had money, like he had stuff. He's quite popular actually. In the, I'm not going to mention his name because I don't want him to know it was me. but he's been famous for a few stupid moves. But anyway, so we're at the sort of one of the guys' houses, and the guy who was sort of running that gang, so to speak. I wouldn't call it a gang; it was just a group of idiots, really. But he was the biggest junkie out of all of them. He was mega insecure, crazy guy, man. In hindsight, he died later on. But he was a massive junkie, mega insecure guy, and he used to be rattling at everybody. He used to be going crazy everywhere. Don't touch nothing, this, that, like going crazy, man. Like he'd just pick on you just to like make himself look, you know. But he was so insecure. Looking back now, you can see that he was so insecure. Anyway. He was nuts, and I remember they weren't going to give me anything like out of what we just took because like they're going to sell it and take smack basically. So I swiped the watch into a JD bag, and I was like, "Yo, lads, I got to go anyway, man. I got to be somewhere." And they were like, "Yeah, safe." And I dipped off, and I remember walking out like, and then I went down the alleyway, and I kind of looked, and I was like, "Yo, that's sick. That's a Rolex." It's in a little green box with a pillow, literally like with the watch on it, like, and it was a woman's watch. It was the guy. It must have been the guy's girlfriend or something, but it was an actual female's watch. And I went and met my girl at the 99p store at West Brom. Like, and I remember, like, I had this Kangol hat on. That's how long ago this was. Like, I was wearing a Kangol hat. Yeah, I was wearing like a little tight top for flex my muscles a bit. And I'm walking around with my girl, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, check this watch out I bought for my mom." And she looked at it, and she was like, "Okay." Like this guy's just rocking about with a 20-gram watch that he bought for his mom. Like, you know what I mean? Like, okay. And we're walking about, and I see the guys looking for me in the car. I kind of look, and I'm like, oh shit, like they're looking for me. So I went down to the back of West Brom where the Blue Bridge is, where it goes into Samwell Valley. And my friend Cashy lives there, liking it. Fair play to him. He saved my life a few times as well. But I went there and I phoned him and I was like, listen, I told her to wait on that road. Wait on his road. And I said to him, listen, there's a girl on your road, yeah, just watch out. You know what I mean? Look out for her. And he's like, bro, what the hell are you doing? I was like, no, these guys are after me. I got to lose them. And he's like, is everything good? Like, do I need to come out? And I said, no, I'll lose them through the park. So I went through over the Blue Bridge. They couldn't follow me down there. And then I come back out the other entrance, ran round and met her again. And that was our first date experience. Like, and then I had to leave her. I had to leave her in West Brom because I had to get home real quick. And phone my brother and stuff, like tell him these guys are after me and that. But yeah, that was like our first date experience, and her dad had to come and pick her up, and I don't even know why she agreed to meet me again.
And you've been with her 17
years. Yeah, I've been with her 17 years. Yeah, like literally. Then I used to go up her way, and to be honest, it pulled me out of a lot of trouble. I stopped hanging around with them guys, you know, like because she lived in Halzowen And that doesn't sound like a lot to us now, but when getting to West Brom to Hull Zone back in the day when you're getting buses, that's a long trip, you know what I mean? That's 45 minutes on a bus, you know, like, so there was only one bus that ran. And I think the last one was like 6 o'clock, and then you had to get 2 buses, one to Dudley or one to Blackheath, and then go to Hull Zone from there. So it was like getting me out the way. So it was a blessing in disguise, really. I didn't really realise that at the time. I think we had our ups and downs as well, but
as you do.
As you do,
yeah.
Would you say that, like, obviously, like having that relationship with your missus kind of helped you pull your, as you were just like saying, kind of like guided you out?
Yeah, because you know, when I went to Hull Zone, I was like, oh shit, these people live different. Yeah. Like, because I'm from like West Bromwich, lived around like Smethwick, Handsworth, hanged around with them guys from Handsworth, Smethwick. And I was like, this is weird. Like, nobody's on the streets, nobody's about, there's no off licenses everywhere. And like, it was like a different environment for me. So I was kind of like at peace. I was like, oh, I like this. This is nice. You know, like it's kind of, this is kind of me, you know, like I like it. And I was just chilling with my girl. And like my mates couldn't understand it because they were like, oh, why are you going outside to see this girl for, bro? And I'm like, nah, but you know what? It's like, when I went to her house, because my house was so loud and violent and hostile all the time, and it was crazy. Everyone shouted at each other. When I went to her house and we were all having Sunday dinner together and we're just chilling, I'm like, your house is so quiet, so peaceful. Everyone's like just chill. Everyone's nice to each other. And I was kind of like, this is this is me, you know, like I really enjoyed it. So I think, yeah, definitely that pulled me away. Yeah, definitely.
That's good, man.
But then my missus moved back, so it went backwards real quick. By the time she was 16, she moved in with me. Yeah, so she come and live with me and my family, and then she was like, whoa, you lot are crazy. Okay. This is nuts, you know, like, you lot are mad. Yeah, that happened, man. And then my dad come back out of prison and it wasn't even crazier. And she was like, this is nuts. Even that house got raided as well. It's funny how many houses got raided. Wow. I think we had 4 in total. Yeah.
What was that asking next? He's like, obviously I said that is like a crazy start.
Yeah, that's a crazy start, bro.
For your first, like, would you say 16?
I'd say 16 years, yeah. First 16 years. By the time I finished high school, that was the start.
For the first 16 years of your life. So going from there, how did you transition? Like, obviously, so where did the training start from? Like, obviously, like going to the gym.
Oh, weight training. Weight training started so in the house prior to the house that I was living when I was 16.
Yeah.
The one that got raided when my dad got kidnapped, and I said it went down spiral. My dad actually bought a weight set off one of his friends.
Okay.
And it's an interesting friend actually, because this guy he's a heavy criminal, like a serious heavy criminal. He lives in South Africa now. And he was renowned in Birmingham for being a serious dude. And give you an insight of how my relationship was with my dad. That guy at that level of madness, even he used to say to my dad, "You need to like get off this kid's case, man. Like, you're always beating him up and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, he's like kind of like, he's like, just leave him. You know what I mean? And like, if you look back here and you think like, for someone like him to recognise. Do you know what I mean? Like, that was crazy. But anyway, my dad bought a weight set off him. He was always into dodgy stuff. He had like fireworks and all sorts of stuff. He was just one of them guys anyway. But my dad bought a weight set off him. He actually gave us our first dog as well, because he used to breed fighting dogs. And like the females, he used to just get rid of them. And he gave us our first dog, and it was like half American Bulldog, half Pit Bull. I used to like that guy, you know, to be fair. He was cool, man. Like, I remember, like, we didn't have bags for primary school. He took us to JJB's back in the day.
Yeah, JJB's.
And he bought us bags, like, in it, because my dad was in prison, and he used to come and check, like, in it, and say, like, you guys are all right and that. Like, he was cool, man. You know, for a guy who's known for what he's known, and I imagine a lot of people hate him, he was cool with me. You know what I mean? He was really good to me, man. Like, he was a cool guy. He was like an uncle, you know what I mean? But anyway, he bought me a bag. He gave me my first dog. That dog was crazy. Like, that wasn't a dog you should be giving like a 10-year-old. And he gave my dad the weight set. And that was in our front room of that house. And my dad never touched it, man. My dad don't do any physical exercise. Like, he prides himself. Like, he'll say, look at my hands, they're clean. He says, because I never worked a hard day in my life. He prides himself on it. Like, and so, like, I remember, like, 13, I just started doing curls and stuff. Like, the first thing you do, everyone just does curls. Started looking at myself and feeling the pump, and I just got addicted to it from there. And that's sort of where I started weight training. But prior to that, it was just only martial arts training, push-ups and sit-ups and stuff like that.
So you kind of we say you kind of merged the two together.
Yeah, merged the two together, 100%. And then it escalated to like when I got to like meeting my girlfriend, like I started actually going to a local gym. Don't know if you guys know Total Fitness in Great Bridge.
Yeah.
Steve Barnes' gym. He was a bodybuilder. Like, so I used to go there, an elite gym in Wednesbury, and all these hardcore old school gyms. Like, and I was like, my eyes were opened to like, you know, like trying different things, and so I enjoyed that. And then I was boxing as well, like at Wednesbury Boxing Academy, and then Al Michael's gym as well. So I was doing a mixture of things all the way up to like 16, 17. And then I think my life really changed because my dad went back to prison again. It's the same story all the time. Actually, no, he was out for that period of time, but I was in college. I went to college. And that was a great time for me because I was in a sports college. So it was like perfect for me. I was like, I'm older now, so I can look after myself. I've got my own money. I can do my own, I can go to work and stuff like that. And like I was training and I was surrounded by people who train, and part of my curriculum was to work out. So that's sort of where things started taking a better turn for me in life. Almost. And I was like, you know what, this is great. I absolutely love this. So this is sort of what I knew at that point. That's what I want to do for the rest of my life. That's like, I want to be in the fitness business. I want to train people. And then I started there training combat and contact sport athletes for free, just voluntary, like, because it was a part of my curriculum anyway. And then I was using the college gym and it was free for me to train anyone I wanted. So I was training like local school rugby teams, the local martial arts guys that would come down there, all my friends from the boxing gym or martial arts gyms. And I'd do like a bit of strength training with them and stuff like that. And that's sort of where that evolved from. And then I didn't really pursue that. I went on to, after college, I went on to work at, remember that supplement store, Quarry Bank?
On the left.
Bodybuilding for you, yeah. So I worked there for Arthur. Really nice guy. He's still going, to be fair. He's got Predator gear. I think it's called Predator gear. And he's in Worcester now. But yeah, I worked at that supplement store, and then I just had odd jobs from there, like, sort of thing.
I remember that being the only supplement store
it was,
around.
Honestly,
I think when that was around, there was no other. There was no other place apart from GNC.
It was so busy.
GNC. I remember that.
It was so busy because like you had better stuff than GNC or more variety, and like you had a lot of the American stuff. Had so many customers there, to be fair, and he did really well. And he was like one of the first people in the UK to sort of have it online as well. Because online was only coming about then. Like, people think online's granted now. Like, oh yeah, online's been there forever, but online shopping was new. Like new and fresh, 17 years ago, it was kind of new.
I was about to say, this is, you know, when you say 17 years ago, this is going to be around about, say, 2006, around about that sort of time. 2006, 2007. So I remember like going there. Like we used to go and get like muscle tech from GNC. And we used to go and get the liquid creatine.
Liquid creatine.
People go, go down to the going.
Man.
I didn't realise you worked there.
I worked there. I worked there for a bit, and then I just moved on to doing odd jobs here and there. But I wanted to really go into personal training and coaching and stuff like that. And then like we got hit with our final raid, and then that was like, again, I knew it was coming. Like, I remember my mom coming back and someone was putting a tracker under the car, and she come back with the shopping, and she come in and she was shouting at me, and she's like, "Aunt, someone's under the car," and he went running down the street. I remember coming out, and I was like, what's going on, man? You know? And someone I knew just got robbed at gunpoint as well. Someone I knew, and I was like, it just seems like that downhill spiral's coming again. And we ended up getting raided like a couple of weeks after, and I was just like, so as soon as that happened, my dad took the car to my uncle's garage, and they found a tracker on there, and someone else got robbed at gunpoint prior to that. So I imagine that was probably going to be the same thing that was going to happen there. And then we got raided again, and it was really a weird one, because it was like nobody woke up other than my missus. It was really weird. It's like, have we become accustomed to the door being banged through? You know, are we sleeping through these now?
Is it a door? It's just a police.
It's just a fence.
Babe, so there's someone at the door.
I was like, they'll let themselves in.
She had to wake me up. I was like, oh God, we're going to do it again. Like, but they don't tell you it's the police. So I get my hockey stick, and I'm standing in the corridor, And I'm shouting at the door like, I got a hockey stick, this, that, the other, like just shouting random stuff. I don't know what I was shouting, man. I just like complete fuzz. And I was like, I just can, in my head, I was like, this is gonna hurt, man. Because whoever's coming through that door, they might machete me, they might be lads, they might shoot me, whatever it is, man, this is gonna hurt. And I'm telling my girl to phone the police, and she won't phone the police. Because her phone was on the windowsill, and she didn't want to open she didn't want to get the curtain, so they see her. And I slept downstairs in the front room. So my bedroom was downstairs in the front room, like, and then the living room was next door. So they break the door down, they're shouting, police, police. And I froze, like, because I'm terrified at this point of what's coming through the door, bro. I got no choice. Like, my brothers, my mom, my missus, everyone's in the house. So I'm standing there waiting for a beating. And they're like, police, police. And I'm just froze. And they were like, put the hockey stick down, put the hockey stick down. And I just froze. So they tasered me. And then by tasering me, my hands closed. So then they were still shouting, put the hockey stick down, but I couldn't. And they tasered me again. And I was like, oh, mate, they can keep tasering me. I remember giving my girlfriend something and saying, like, if anyone comes through this door, just let it off. And the first thing they did is just push me through that door. And I was like, no, not this door. I was like, please no. But she didn't do anything anyway, like, and basically, I ended up going through like this little glass bedside thing. I ended up tripping and going through that. I didn't have any clothes on. And I was standing there, and they were reading out all these names, and I was like, I know who these people are, but they're not my associates. I know I was involved in some shit then, but I was like, they're not my actual, my people. So I was kind of like, what's going on here? Like, and then they were like, and then I realized they started calling my dad's name out, and I realized that they think that I'm my dad, and they've got the wrong person. So they're arresting me, and me and my girlfriend are looking at each other, and I'm like, oh my God, these donuts have arrested the wrong person. I'm standing there with nothing on, like I'm naked, like no pants, nothing. And I've just been tasered as well, so it's made it worse. And I'm like, can I put some trousers on, please? And they were like, yeah, all right. And then they were like helping me put my trousers on. Like, I'm trying to put trousers on with cuffs. And my girlfriend's like in bed, just terrified, like, what's going on? And I'm just thinking, they're going to arrest me, and it'll give my dad some time, for whatever he needs to do. Get out I don't know what he was going to do. I don't know what the plan was, but it'll give him some time. And then my brother comes downstairs, and this seems like it was going on forever because, like I say, they must have been accustomed to the raids. They just left it. So my brother come downstairs. They pushed him into the front room, which door was next to my room door. And they found my dad, and my dad was still sleeping. And they had to wake him up, and they waked him up so gentle. They were like, Mr. Chander, you need to get up. And I was like, mate, you didn't give me that treatment when you come through the door. And then they come back around, and they were like, who are you? And I was like, who do you want me to be? And they were like, what's your name? And I was like, whatever you want it to be. Like, I was just being an arse then, like, at that point. And they were like, we need to, like, take your cuffs off him. We've arrested the wrong person. And then they arrested my dad. And he'd just come back from the casino probably about half an hour before. And, like, so he's, the next day, I don't know how he was feeling in that cell, but he must have been hungover, feeling down, feeling horrible. And I remember my mom saying, like, he's just like, she spoke to him, and he was like, just get me out of here, just get me out of here. And I didn't really care at that time because I was frustrated. I mean, I was angry. I was almost like I wanted to fight him because I was like, mate, you just got me tased in front of my girl. You got me arrested. You basically humiliated me. You know what I mean? Because of your action, like, because whatever and we didn't really talk at that time either. We didn't have the best relationship. Like, him and my mom didn't have a good relationship. He was sleeping downstairs. She was sleeping in her room. And, like, sometimes when he was drunk, he'd come back and he'd try and kick her out of bed. So I'd be fighting with him, like, who you think you are? You ain't coming back here and kicking her out of bed. You know what I mean? Like, get back downstairs and whatever. Like, it was kind of like just the only person that ever used to speak to him at that point in time was my missus. My missus used to look after him, and, like, she'd make him dinner or make him a cup of tea. That's my missus' nature. She's just one of those people. She looks after people. So she never really got involved, but, like, that was like a daughter to him. It was weird because he treated her so good. And I always thought if he had a daughter, he'd have been a totally different person, you know, because he's ended up with 5 sons. He's just gone down that road, and he's like okay with his sons just doing their thing, you know. So, but so we didn't really have the best relationship going into that anyway, and then that just sort of made it worse. But as I got older, I just realized, you know, you can't let people have that hold on you.
No, not at all. Man.
You have to let go at some point, otherwise you're burning your own energy on someone else's fire. It's like there's no point, is there? So that was the last of all of that nonsense, and then
So like after like all that, so obviously when we say when all that stopped, when was it when you got, because like obviously because you got your gym now, but what was the points just before? Obviously, what was you doing before? Like obviously getting into like that, obviously thinking about getting your own gym or getting like.
So at the time when we got raided, obviously I was involved in things myself as well, and I was just doing my own thing. My long-term goal was to basically invest in a gym and just do my thing, man. I thought that's what I love to do. I want to do my thing. And then we got raided, everything come to a halt, and I just had enough. I was like, you know what, forget that life. I don't want to ever be a part of that again. I was so angry, so frustrated at my dad, and then shortly after, my mom wanted me at the house as well. I don't know if I just reminded of him, but it just was, things were just colliding at the time. We was just colliding. So I moved out, and I just remember like, I'm just going to do legit stuff now. That's it. I've had enough. It's not even worth the headaches. It's not worth any of that. Like I just want to change my life. Like that was my big turning point. So I started working in Sports Direct. I was working on the doors. I was working dead jobs while I was like thinking about, okay, I need to set up a gym or get a job as a personal trainer or something like that. I don't even really know what I wanted to do at that point in time. I just wanted to do something. So I phoned the person who I knew, who was the most successful person who I knew at the time. And he's like my mom's cousin. And I always been cool with this guy. Like we had a lot of things in common. Like, and he works for Sky. He's like responsible for the satellite signal to Sky, to space and back. And I was like, dude, look, I'm 22. My life's a mess. You know what I mean? I want to do something with my life. You know what I mean? And he's like, yeah, that's fine, man. I can help you do that. Like, I'm really glad we're having this conversation. And he was into all that sort of stuff. So he was going to get me on a CCNA course, like doing computer stuff and do what he does. So I moved to Southampton. I got a job with my uncle, my mum's brother, and I was working for him part-time while doing the CCNA stuff, like studying CCNA, getting into computers. Glad I didn't do it in the end, but so a couple of months went by. My uncle's son, he's got an alcohol problem. I love the kid, yeah, but he's got a problem with alcohol and he lost his job. So my uncle had to give him what I had as a job with him. He owns a construction business. He's like, I'm sorry, but my son's lost his job. You gotta take the fall. You know what I mean? Like, so I come back on, and then, like 2 weeks before that happened, I've give up my flat, and my girlfriend's moved in with her nan, and she was gonna come up to Southampton and move in with me in my little studio flat I had there that I was building a new life. So we was gonna start a brand new life in Southampton. That was my whole, because my mom's family's from there, Winchester. I was gonna go there, start a new life, do this CCNA course, follow his footsteps and start a family. That come collapsing down, like, so I ended up coming back with my tail between my legs, but my pride sort of cut me up a little bit. So prior to moving into the flat, we lived with Louise's nan and granddad for a little bit, but I couldn't move back there. I was like, no, I'm not going back there as a failure. So I was sofa surfing. So I was homeless for the second time in my life. And I had this blow-up bed, man. You know what them blow-up beds are like.
Yeah.
I used to have to wake, you had like a slow puncher. I used to have to wake up in the night, pump it back up. And then go back to bed. Man, it was terrible. And I used to roll it up and put it in my bag and take it to work with me. And then I was working the doors and I was working at the NEC as well as security. And then at that point, I was working for a school. I won't mention their name because they got shut down. I don't want to bad rep them. But I was working for a school as a mentor with gun crime and gang affiliated kids.
Oh, okay.
And I got some scrap gym equipment off Facebook buy and sell. My friend had some for sale as well. And I was taking that there with me in my missus' car and leaving it there. And I was doing like training with them as well. So that's where that sort of started. And I had to do 3 months voluntary there before they took me on as a main role. So I thought, okay, I could do this. I was working at the school Monday to Friday. I was working Friday and Saturday night on the doors. And then Saturday daytime and Sunday daytime, I'd do the NEC. So I was working around the clock on the weekends to make money to pay my bills and working at the NEC as much as I could and working at the school as a volunteer. So for the first couple of months, I was homeless. So I was just taking all my stuff to the NEC in my bag, taking everything to the school in my bag, and just dropping, you know what I mean? And I'm just sofa surf. I was sofa surfing here, there, and everywhere. Stay at my mum's as long as she could put up with me. Then I'll stay at someone else's house, and I was just sofa surfing. And everyone's like, "What, you got a big bag with you?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm just moving stuff. Don't worry." You know what I mean? And then City Night. Sorry, I nearly said their name.
Yeah.
With the school, the head teacher, something happened with the head teacher, and she was basically meant to be paying these volunteers. She was getting funds for the volunteers, but she was keeping it. So that had a massive backlash, and the school got shut. Basically, everyone got wiped. So I wasted 3 months there for nothing. And then I was like, okay, I took my gym equipment, put it in my mom's garage, and I was working at the NEC, and I was on a 0-hour contract, and I ended up getting pneumonia. So I was really sick. And I said, I need some time off work, but Crufts was on, that dog show. Yeah. Disgusting show, man. Terrible show. If you watch what goes on behind, they treat their dogs terribly. But anyway, I was working at the NEC. I needed some time off, but that weekend it was Crufts, and I'm sick. I can't breathe. I'm throwing up all the time. I got severe pneumonia. And they were like, if you don't come in, we're going to cancel all your shifts, basically. That's what they told me. If you don't come in, we can't guarantee the rest of your shifts. And I was like, you can't do that. I'm broke as it is now because I've just wasted 3 months working voluntary. I'm working 11 hours on the weekend on the doors, and I'm only getting part-time work. So the money I have got is just to eat, basically. And I was like, you can't do that. And they did it. They wiped that month, man, just to give me as an example. And I was like, nah, man, this is rough. So the following month, I knew I was going to come to a point where I had no money left. And I remember days before I was going to get paid, I think it was 2 days. The last 2 days, I was starving, and I had a bottle of water, a plastic bottle of water. And I was still at work. I was still working for them, even though they just mugged me off. And so the rolling month, I remember running out of money, and I had this bottle of water for the last day. And I remember going around asking people, "Oh, you got a chewing gum, mate? You got a chewing gum?" Asking my friends who I were working with, and just chewing gum for the last day. And I had this bottle of water, and I just kept refilling it, and that was just keeping me going. And I remember sitting down, and I had the bottle of water next to me. I was in the NEC. I was on my break, and I was sitting there like this, and the cleaner's going around, and she took my water bottle and put it in the bin. And when I went to get up, I went to go and get my water, and it's gone. And that was my lifeline.
Yeah.
And I remember just feeling sadness at that point. Yo, this is so now I'm no water. I've got no house. I've got no water. I've got no money. And I remember, so the next day come, and I train hopped to get to work from the, was it the Birmingham station?
Yeah.
Station, yeah, that goes to, there's one train, so I train hop because I used to wear red to go to the NEC anyway. So I just acted like I was a Virgin conductor and just walked on, you know what I mean? So I train hop there, finished work, and then I went back to Birmingham. I got paid, so the money went in my bank. And the first thing I could think of is going to McDonald's on the ramp, the ramp in Birmingham. The famous McDonald's. I went in there, and I remember just hugging my food and eating it, and just looking at everyone, and just feeling what's going on, man. You know what I mean? And I think at that point I just vowed I'm never working for anybody else, man. I'm never putting it in anyone else's hands. It seems like every single time I've done that, it's backfired on me. You know what I mean? So shortly after that, me and my missus got a studio flat, not much bigger than this room, to be honest. It had a little tiny kitchen area, one sofa and a bed, and that was it, and a tiny box bathroom. And we got that studio flat, and I started collecting just scrap and making gym equipment as well. I was making Atlas stone with I got a hopper ball, filled it. I'd put plaster of Paris around it, and then take the hopper ball out and fill it with concrete to make some of the stones. You know, the stones that you used.
Yeah.
And I said some of them I made. They were some of the stuff that I made, and I made sleds with tires and stuff like that. And I was just training friends and family and trying to make some extra money on the side. And everything I made, I just kept putting it back in there. And then my missus found the gym that we're at now. She found the building on Gumtree. And she's like, "There's a building here. It's really cheap. what do you reckon? And I was like, you know what, I ain't got nothing to lose. I haven't got any equipment. I haven't got much equipment, but it looked more professional than someone coming to my garage and training them from there. So I was like, okay, I've not got much equipment, but I can use it to train people, and it'll look like a bit more of a professional facility. It's a big place, yeah.
Big place.
So, you know, the main room you were in, that's the only room that I had stuff in.
Okay.
And I had a big track down the middle just to cover the floor space, but I barely had anything in there. I started off with like a couple of logs and stones and farmers and stuff like that. Enough to train people with, but like it wasn't a lot of equipment. So I just took the plunge, just went for it. So that was a year after being in the garage. That was about a year after what happened in the NEC, and I was saving up at that studio flat. And we was there for a bit, and then I just took the plunge, and I was still working my door job. I was still working at the NEC part-time as well. And I remember the final day that I could tell like the NEC where to go. Well, it wasn't the NEC, to be fair. It was the security company I was working. So to be fair to it, it wasn't them directly. But I remember them phoning me and saying, "Oh, you're meant to be in today. How come you're not coming in?" And I was like, "Oh, am I?" I was like, "Well, no, it doesn't look like I'm coming back." And I just put the phone down. And I was still working the doors and still building the business. So then I was living off the money that I was earning off the doors. And my missus was helping me out as well, like with food and stuff, like, and buying food and that. She was working full time. And literally everything that I made from the gym, I was putting it back in because I couldn't get a loan. I couldn't get a business loan because I was technically homeless. I didn't have a registered address in the last 2 years. So because I didn't have that, they were like, "Well, where are we going to give you a loan to?" You just keep, you seem almost off the radar. You know, it just seems a little bit suspicious with banks. It's ironic because now they offer me loans. Like, they're like, "Oh, you can borrow up to £200,000." And I'm like, "Well, I don't need it now.
I don't need it
I've
now,
built the gym." And literally, I just built it over 6 years. And it just kept on building and building and building. First, I had it as like just training athletes, coaching. And my friend was competing in the Samuel Steelers, American football team based in the UK. And he brought a bunch of his teammates down, so that boosted me up. And then a few of my mates from martial arts clubs and stuff, they just all sort of boosted me up. I always say Dudley took care of me, you know, almost.
Was there any particular reason why you went down like the powerlifting niche? Because I said before, like, there's gyms everywhere. And like every gym has got like benches. Obviously, not saying that you've got that stuff in yours, but like obviously your Atlas stones and the truck pulls and like some of them you've got some big old weights in there.
Some different stuff.
So was there a particular reason why you went down?
I think when going back to when I was in college, because I was always interested in martial arts and I was interested in weightlifting simultaneously, there's not much information on how to train weight in the weight room for martial arts or any kind of combat contact sport. I think there's a little bit more now. More strength conditioning has become more popular over the last 10 years. I think we're a little bit behind America, but they were sort of catching up with that side of things. So there wasn't really enough of that sort of stuff around then, and I felt like that's what I particularly like to train for, and those are the kinds of athletes that I would like to train. So my niche was aiming towards training combat and contact sport athletes, and a lot of the tools that I used for that were strongman implements and sort of powerlifting implements like deadlifting and squatting and stuff like that. So that sort of spiraled from there, and with the strongman equipment, I had a lot of strongmen asking me like, "Oh, can we come and use that equipment as well?" And I started putting it on Facebook pages, like strongman pages and stuff, and then more strongmen come. So I thought, okay, there's a niche there. I'll start going with that as well. Started buying more strongman equipment. And then my friend was into powerlifting, and I did a lot with this friend, to be fair, because he was into martial. He's the one who got me into MMA. I was boxing before that, and then he got me into MMA, and then he was doing powerlifting, and I was like, "Oh, I could do that as well." Like, so I started doing powerlifting, and I thought, "Oh, we'll buy some powerlifting equipment, some calibrated plates and stuff like that," because I thought there's not much about that, not a lot of that stuff around. There's not many gyms that have that sort of stuff, like the sort of specialty bars and stuff like that. So I thought, okay, I'll do that as well, and it sort of glues in together with the strongman side of things. But then I grew up going to old school bodybuilding gyms. So I also wanted that, and that's how the bodybuilding, the leg room, the little dungeon room that we got, and like the upper body area, that sort of tied in. And then if you go upstairs, like you guys went upstairs as well, like got the boxing MMA sort of thing. So that's sort of how it all come together. Like it just sort of evolved itself.
Because you know what, I think about this, because I've thought about this after we trained there before, because like there's a lot of people who train and that they want to look or be a certain way. And I always say that, like, everyone's got a body type.
Yeah.
Not everyone's meant to be big. Not everyone's meant to be slim. But like, I think it's definitely one of them places, if you're into your training, that you should come and try out. This is like a little shameless plug for you. But I think that there's some people who they may want to be like aesthetic, like look aesthetic way, but like they
want to be able to push more.
Yeah, but I think they'll probably get more out of coming to your gym and understanding that, like, obviously they're better at strength training rather than repetition and trying to look a certain
aesthetic
way. And I think when we it was almost like stepping into didn't you think it was like stepping into like a different world?
Oh yeah. You walk in and, like, because I've been so got used to just like when I hear the sound of iron clanging the walls and clanging, and I was like, okay, I'm in a good gym now. I'm like, the endorphins kicking in, music was blasting. It's like I'm in my element, and like I said, just to see the equipment there, like equipment you've never seen before. I'm still impressed that you bought that massive tire.
Oh mate,
that
getting
tire,
the equipment down the stairs.
I was like,
the next gym, I'm leaving it all there. Anyone can have it. I don't care if you can get it out. You deserve it. It's like I'm not planning on taking all of that out. I don't know what I'm gonna do. It was bad enough moving house.
Yeah, I can imagine that, man. I bet.
But in turn, like leaving that whole thing, and I always say Dudley's taking care of me, or the Black Country community's taking care of me, because going from being homeless to not being able to get a loan for that gym, now people offer to buy it off me. And I'm able to get a loan for the gym, which I don't ever take out now because I've got my own money. And I've ended up buying a house because of that business. And it just all took a massive turn in the end anyway. So it's nice that all those things actually happened, because they would have never led to where I am now.
Where today,
and now when I look at the gym in the morning, I always have two moments when I go home at night and I open my door, I sit in my car and look at my house and I'm like, I own this. This is great. And then when I go to work in the morning and I switch the lights on and I look at the gym and I'm like, I own this. And it's like everything was worth it.
Yeah.
Just them two moments.
Yeah. I get that. And I think like, obviously, I think for anybody like who's listening to this or listening to it at any given time, it's like it's definitely about the destination and not the journey. I know that sounds very kind of cliche.
Cliche stuff, it's true.
But when you obviously, when you get to that point where you go, I've had to go through all of that to get
there.
Does it still fill you with the same kind of joy every time?
I'm not a massive and emotional person. I think probably because of my past, I've not really been too attached with my emotions. So I'm almost stoic. So I try not to get too attached. I think it's a problem really, because I should feel the mass joy from it. But I feel like that when I was younger, because of my past, I've stopped myself from feeling it's like over ecstatic or joy from things. But it's weird because I say to my missus, is always like, what more do you want? Because I'm always trying new things, started the new business with the interventions, and I'm always trying more. And I'm like, it's not where I want to be. I don't care about how much money I've got in the bank account. I don't care about clothes. I don't care about cars or anything like that. I'm not like materialistic, but it's more, I want to get further away from where I was. I felt what rock bottom felt like. And I'm so fearful of it. I'm so fearful going back there that I'm just trying to get as far away from that as possible, and I don't want my kids to ever experience that. I don't want my missus to ever experience what my mom experienced. We pride ourselves on having a peaceful home. And I'm trying to just get them as far away from where I've been. I've been to the depths of life, and I don't want to. I don't want them to even see a glimpse of it. So that's it for me. So I don't get too excited because I've got so much more I want to get. It's like I'm not satisfied at all this.
Yeah, I get that. I do get that.
And it's not even for the thing. It's just to get away.
Just get away from it.
It's more out of fear.
And like you mentioned, like in previous, it's like you've had those days where like something's like that clicks. Some bad's gonna happen, so you're doing everything you can. To avoid
it's inevitable. There's always going to be like I imagine bad days are coming as well. But they're inevitable. That's the balance of life, isn't it? Without that, we wouldn't have the good times. So I'm pretty happy that all my bad times are behind me. I've had 30 years of bad ones. I reckon I can get another 30 years of good ones.
You mentioned something. Obviously, you're going to we spoke about the stuff, but you shoehorn it again. But like, tell us about like
the intervention. The
interventions
about that and stuff.
So going back to when I was working at that school mentoring, and I was doing some strength training with the kids and stuff. Now I'm doing it for myself, basically. So I've started an intervention company, Primal Assertive Training, I've called it. So it's just an opportunity for young people to assert themselves as adults. And just giving them the things that, like, almost like in nature, we would have went out with our dads and hunted and provided a meal to our families. That would have been like the traditional way of asserting yourself as a man, like, or as an adult, so to speak. So it's just giving them an opportunity, and you guys will understand this because you've done it through competitions and stuff like that, and weight training yourselves. It just gives them an opportunity to exert some of that energy, to exert some of that frustration, and then I do mentoring with them afterwards. So I take basically with the training side of it, I do what I did with you guys that day. You come down to Primal, we just I get them to drag sleds, I get them to flip tires, we carry sandbags, we do clean and presses. We got like, I get not quite stones, but I use like heavy medicine balls for Atlas stones with them, like a watered down strongman workout, and we'll do that in the morning with them. And then I have second period with them where we just basically do a mentoring session. So I teach them about lifestyle skills, managing their emotions, how to stay stoic, how to cope with life, how to not be distracted, stuff like that. And we just have open discussions. And then I go into their lessons. Then, because a lot of these kids are troubled kids, they come from similar backgrounds to myself. And then I'll go into their lessons as well and help them out in their lessons. And that's sort of the relationship of and the nature of the business.
So, like, when you meet these kids, like, is it the case that you see them go, I know exactly what you're going through. I know it. Like, do they come in and you literally go?
I started with a story and I give them a character name. So, like, I let them make the character name up. So I talk to them about my story, but I don't tell them it's my story. So we'll go through our first workout, our initial workout. We'll go through our first workout and we'll do a lesson together. We're like, oh, we got anchors and engines, and there's a character. So, for example, they called him Chips last time, and I give them names of somebody. And I say, was this person an anchor or an engine in his life? Like, for example, my dad at the early stages of my life, was he an anchor or an engine? Was he helping me go forward, or was he anchoring me back? And we just go through it, and we go through my life story. And at the end, I tell them that Chips was me. That was my story. And then they're like, oh, okay, this guy's been through something maybe I've been through, or I can relate. And then that's how we build that. That's how I start my initial relationship with them. So we build that story, which really I'm guiding them through my story. And
was there any particular reason why you went down that route, or was it because
going back to the roots of where I wanted to start? Because I've done the gym thing, and I really loved being a mentor. It was with gun crime and gang affiliated kids that have just come out of prison, couldn't go to schools. I loved that job, and I just thought, I'm in a position now financially and in my own life where I'm stable enough that I can go and do something like this, and that's why I started that business. And it gets me out of the gym a little bit as well. I've been there 6 years, so it gets me out. It gives me a change of scenery. It keeps it interesting. I think youthful people keep you young.
They keep
you young.
I've got this guy here.
Yeah, they keep you young.
I mean, I don't look like it.
It does. It keeps you young. Working with them kids, it keeps you young, and it's sad and good at times, because I see them go through the struggles that I went through, and I get a little. I wouldn't say get upset, because I'm not very attached to my emotions in that sense. I think I have to be detached almost.
Is there any particular reason why you always, like, when you say like I'm not attached like to my emotions, or?
I think because I've got so much responsibility, and I think we all have our own perspective of what a man is. Like, we all have our own individual perspective. I mean, on a broader scale, we'll probably agree that, like, be looking after your family and stuff like that. But then we have our individual things that define us as men. And I think for me, just being making the sacrifice to put my emotions and my problems aside to take on to manage my responsibilities better. I think that's the best way I could put it.
Don't you think that, like, yours count, like your feelings?
I think they count. 100%. I think they do count. I'm putting them aside. I think if I open that door up, there's so much there. Do
you reckon you just leave them there, or? Because, like, the only reason why I say, because I think, like, I've realised with myself and like many other guys, well, I always kind of like try and brush things to one side and leave it there. But ultimately, you'll brush something to the one side or put it in beyond the door, but then it means that you'll ultimately put other stuff beyond the door as well.
Yeah.
But then it just never gets unpacked. But when it does finally get unpacked, it's almost like would you reckon that you're kind of scared of the emotion, or what? I
don't think I'm scared of emotion, because I don't really know what that feels like. Because when I was really young, I've cut that sort of off, like emotional attachments to things. So it's hard to feel something you can't even comprehend, really. I think for me, there's a lot of stuff behind that door. I know there's a lot of stuff behind that door, and I don't want it to distract me from my job. I feel like almost like I've got to serve my family right now. I've got like the kids in my life, my nephews, my goddaughters, my missus, my dog, you know, and I've got a duty to fulfill as a man, taking care of them. And then when my job's done on my last time, like I'll probably think about it then, you know. But there is a lot behind that door. I'm not unaware of what's behind there. There is a lot of behind there.
You think you feel a bit scared about being vulnerable?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, from my past. Yeah, maybe because of that, being vulnerable. Still, I think that's probably why I still train for martial arts. That's why I still train for strength, even though I'm not even going to get in any of them conflicts again. Touch wood, I never do. But I'm still. It gives me a sense of security, doesn't it? So
reason why, because I think I think I've only got to that stage myself where I can be vulnerable, but I feel so much freer.
Do you really?
Yeah. If I was ever going to give any advice to anybody, it's either speak to a counsellor and not think that, like, just because you're a man you have to kind of fit
the macho
a certain criteria. But as soon as like you kind of understand that you can be vulnerable, it doesn't take nothing away from you kind of what you say is in manliness. I just feel like a hell of a lot.
It doesn't really make you less of a man as well. In fact, it's the opposite, because if they see you like you're vulnerable, so I think a lot of men get the word vulnerable wrong. So I think most men assume vulnerable means, oh, I've got to cry.
Yeah, I don't.
I don't think there's nothing wrong. I don't think there's nothing wrong with that at all.
It's not nothing wrong with crying, but I think a lot of men, like from my assumption, of vulnerability is when like men assume vulnerable means I've got to cry. I can remember this podcast. It was a dating podcast, and that was hilarious. We're watching it. That's long story. I got shut, but he said vulnerable is not about crying, it's showing your absolute highest and absolute lowest and sharing it. And he was saying, and like he was literally going like, I think
that's why I've enjoyed this as well.
Him and his missus was having a massive not row, but because he was a bit like I'm not opening up, but then he opened up and he's like, no, this is how I'm feeling, this is I'm not happy about this situation. And like he had a tear in his eye because he's like, I've managed to let go of that. And he said that made him feel so much better. So I think it doesn't always have to be like, I've got to break down. It's just like,
I was going to say, I ain't cried in about 7 years.
Nah.
I think there's just different levels of vulnerability. I think obviously within people, it's like even just telling, because like I'll tell you one thing now, I've got no problem in telling you what I'm not good at. I've got no problem in telling you that I'm not strong enough for that. I've got no problem. And as soon as I do this, it's almost like, you know, like
you're congruent with yourself.
I'll tell you where I got some of this from. It was in 8 Mile.
Yeah.
And like I always draw back just this one moment. You probably know what I'm talking about. So when he's on stage and he's gonna have that battle, and he tells the guy everything.
This is himself.
So you're already out there.
So once you put everything out there, it's almost like, what are you gonna get moved now? You've got 100%. Nothing. You've got nothing to get moving. I think I always kind of use that, and I think I've kind of just like elaborated it over the years. But like I think if I'd give any advice to any like my male friends or anybody like going through them sorts of things, I'm like, I'd touch that. Once you realise what that does, that's when you realise like how much of like.
You know, prior to doing it, did you feel the necessity to do it? Did you feel like it was there? Because I don't generally, like, I feel like my missus thinks I've got a problem.
Yeah.
And everyone around me says like, and you are like a swinging brick for a heart, you know, like you don't feel nothing, like, and it bothers me when people say that about me. So I feel like I do feel something. But
there's your first.
There's your first one.
Because I do care, and the reason I put all that aside is because I care, but they don't see it.
Yeah.
Like my missus and they don't see that I do, but I'm putting it aside for them. But then they say, "Oh, you don't have anything, you don't have any emotions, and all this sort of stuff."
You know, so sometimes we can say we're going to do something for someone else.
Yeah.
But
if anything, you got to do it for you.
When you do the thing, when you do that thing for yourself, that's what you're doing for them.
Yeah.
So they will get more from you doing something for yourself in that way, rather than you physically.
The problem with that though, John, is I don't feel like I got a problem.
But you know what? And I get that because like I think everybody will go, "I'm all right. There's nothing wrong with me."
I don't feel upset or anything.
Like, especially if you're a big guy like you, or probably even myself, when we say nothing's wrong, and people go, "No, nothing's wrong," and then like I
feel fine.
Yeah, I'm fine. And then you'll say, when you walk out, and I go, "Yeah, I think but like you to tell him all," because he thinks everything's okay.
Man. If I was to do anything for myself, man, I wouldn't even be on this planet now, man. I'll be gone. I'll be out of here.
What do you mean by doing anything for yourself?
Like if I was single, didn't have any family, didn't anything, mate, I'll be out of this place, man. I'll be in heaven now, man. I'll be done. I think my responsibilities and duty keep me out, but like I spoke to you guys before, and it like saying that I lost a kid as well.
Yeah.
Won't go too far into it, but for our viewers to just explain, her mom was an addict, and she wasn't born. You know what I mean? So I think everyone has a perception of heaven. We all have our own idea of what heaven is. You know, Biggie puts it best in his music. You know, but like my perception of heaven is going back to the age that she would have been born and being a dad with her, like from then onwards. You know what I mean? So I can go and spend, like, that's my idea of heaven. When I'm gone from here, I'll be up there starting again and being that, you know what I mean, a dad with her. And that the only things that are holding me down here is just the responsibilities I got here. Do you know what I mean? Like, because I'm missing that every single day.
Is it the case where it reminds me of Marvel Iron Man, where Tony keeps like, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I've got to do that. Then obviously at the end, when the bad guy's defeated and stuff, he still wants to keep going, but his wife's like, "You can relax now." Is that the case of where you feel like
he had his moment where he could just rest and be with whoever he needed to be?
Is that the case where you're like, "No, I can't rest. I've got to do it. I've got to sort you out. I've got to sort that out. I've got to sort this out."
Yeah, I've got to take care of, like, I've got like, and man, every time I talk to her, I apologize to her. I'm like, "I'm sorry, I'm not with you right now, you know, but I've got to take care of, I've got an innocent woman and kids that need me right now. That's why I can't be with you." I'm always apologizing to her. I always talk to her.
Do you think you're at peace?
At peace?
Within yourself?
I think I'm heading to it.
Yeah.
I think I'm heading to it, man. I promised my goddaughter, one of the girls that my missus looks after, that I'm going to live until she's 100. Yeah. So I'm going to get to 120. And then when I get to 120, man, I'm taking that final sip of whiskey. Yeah. And I'm gone, man. I'm taking the long flight. No, you know what I mean? Good, when I get to 120, man, I don't want anyone to be sad, man, because I'm up there, man, being a dad, doing my thing, you know what I mean, with my angel. But and well, you know, that's what I believe anyway. But yeah, I find myself apologizing, man, all the time. It was a really difficult thing to put closure to, because there was no body to bury. I named her and just wrote a letter, and that was it. And it was like that was that. And then, like, that was just shortly before the gym as well. It was weird. But yeah, things happen, man. But that would, if it wasn't for my missus and the kids and everything else, I think I just wouldn't be here. I wouldn't bother.
You have to kind of like, take time on yourself as well, because I say if you don't, obviously, like, you're not going to be able to do them things for them. So, and I think
you have to have a balance. Yeah, I've noticed that.
Yeah, you have to find a balance, and also kind of like apologize to yourself sometimes.
Yeah,
and forgive yourself. So I think like sometimes like we can go around trying to do more things and try and fill gaps, but if we don't kind of like forgive ourselves or kind of understand that, like, you know what, I'm just a human being. At the end of the day, it's like I can't like control everything around and everything else. It's what people do for themselves, like we've got no control over, but if you can control over your own self.
100%. I think that's why I forgive so many people, because I don't want them to have, I just have that hold, and I'm cool with I'm cool with my dad, like still now, like to this day.
That's a big thing though.
It's hard, like, and don't get me wrong, it wasn't always bad times, without alcohol he's like the best person in the world to be around. Without alcohol he's great, you know what I mean? Not so much as he's got older, but he's a bit grumpy.
What's your relationship right now with your dad?
Excuse me. So I remember, like, when he went to prison the last time, he got done for 12 years, and he served 6. And I remember, like, when he gets out of prison, I'm gonna mess him up, man, because like I got tasered and beat up that day. You know what I mean? I was like, I'm angry. He's humiliated me. I was really frustrated at him, and we didn't have the best relationship. And then when he come out of prison, or when I first saw him when he was in prison, because I remember the one time it was my birthday and he was asking to speak to me. And I was like, I ain't speaking to him. I didn't speak to him for years, for the first 3 years while he was in prison. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to give him his peace, man, because he's already suffering in there anyway, man. So I'm just going to give him his peace, man, and just speak to him, like, So I spoke to him, like, for the first time in 3 years. And this, like, he's been sitting in a cell now. Like, I ain't spoke to him for 3 years. I spoke to him. And he was buzzing. And then he was like, will you come and see me? And I was like, man. I was like, I'm still angry, you know what I mean? I'll take it out on you in the prison if I have to. And I remember seeing him. I went and seen him with my 2 brothers, my older brother Damon and my younger brother Vito. And I seen him, and I was like, I was really frustrated, but for a different reason, because I was like, where's that monster, man? You know what I mean? Where's that massive dude that I used to think was Mike Tyson, that I was so scared of, you know what I mean? Like, that man who just used to terrify me. Where is he? Now you're just a little old man with grey hair, like, and I'm like, who is this? Like, I don't recognise you. Who are you? You know what I mean? I was like, nah, I don't want him. I want the monster. You know what I mean? Get him out. You know what I mean? And it's not the same person.
Because we sometimes forget that we've all got age, we've all got to, like, we've all got to change over, and I think
we change,
and I think when twice like to say that, like, obviously who we were back then is not necessarily who we are now.
No, 100%. I think he's 2 different people when he's drinking and when he's not drinking. But
like, even if he's drinking, he's not drinking. But like, obviously, when you could like, you ultimately know you're a bigger man than him, that you could really. But I always like to say, well, what do you really get from it? It's like,
no, I want the monster. I want that back. If he pulled that in front of me now, I'm happy to go down with it. But the person he's now, it's not the same. It's not even the same person. And I think I'd have to be the vulnerable 4-year-old as well.
It wouldn't work that way.
It just don't make no sense.
Because you think about it, it's like if somebody said to you, go back to the 17-year-old you.
Yeah.
You'd be like, what for?
Yeah.
And like, you'd be like, so like, I'd be a bit like a sat down, like a conversation with him about like some of this kind of stuff, or is he the kind of person to have a kind of, because I think like some men from certain eras, they don't want to talk about anything, or they won't want to
I think we spoke about it once, because he was like, oh, what have I ever done to you or something? And I was like, what about this time?
Well,
and then he put the phone down because he didn't want to listen to it, because he was in prison at the time and he didn't want to listen to it. I was like, listen, I told him about it when I was like 4. And he knew exactly what I was talking about, And then he messaged me saying, oh, I don't want to talk about that because I was ashamed of it. I just want to forget about it. I just want to move on, this, that, and I was like, fair enough, man. Do you know what I mean? I was like, man, them demons are going to haunt you as well, man. I've got my own demons as well. And they haunt me. You know what I mean? Everyone's got their demons.
You gotta be a Ghostbuster sometimes, bro.
Yeah, well,
you got to sometimes. It's like sometimes you got to strap on the proton pack and just.
I'm still doing my thing, man. I'm just taking care of my life, my whole life purpose, and the biggest achievement I can be is a man to my family. You know what I mean? Like that's my ultimate goal now, is to just take care, and finances aren't going to give them that. Like, me being responsible, like, I don't drink anymore. I'm like, I try and look after my health a bit better. I'm doing more cardio and stuff. Just trying to be like a leading example, working hard for my kids and stuff like that. I just want to be the best example of being a family man to them. That's ultimately my ultimate goal now, like in life. And I'm going to do that until I'm 120, until, you know, anyone at my funeral won't really know me because they'll all be gone.
Yeah.
You know, but that's my goal now for the next 8 years. I've got to do that.
No, I like that. Okay. So if you've got last question, like if you could meet, like go back in time, and meet the younger self of your younger self, like what would you say you was at your darkest stage? What age? If I
darkest stage, probably when I was really young, about 4 years old. Yeah.
Okay. So if you was, what would you say to your 4-year-old self, and what would you say to your 16-year-old self?
4-year-old self. Wow, that's a hard one because the youngest kid my missus looks after, she's 4. She's just gone 5, and she'd have been the same age as my daughter. So, man, looking at her and seeing her, and it's almost like, what would I say to my daughter or her?
Yeah.
Going through that, I don't even know where I'd start. I don't even know where I'd start, man. I just, if I was to speak to that 4-year-old self, I just tend to hide, man. I just tend to hide and just survive, like just hide, just keep hiding.
Will you tell me like how great is going to turn out?
Yeah.
No, because he might change something then.
Oh, okay.
He might take it. He might relax a little bit. You know what I mean? He might have not done the karate classes and the training and stuff. You know what I mean? I just tell him to hide, man.
Yeah.
I just be like, just hide, kid. Just hide. You know what I mean? If I couldn't physically be there for him, and I could just tell him to do something, I'd just tell him to hide, man. I'd have told him to hide in the little cabinet in the box room.
What about your 16-year-old self?
16-year-old self. I would have told him not to be as hard as I was on my mum. Like, and I wasn't like harsh in any sense. Like, I was just almost like, you know, when you're like, oh, it's your fault.
Yeah.
It's your fault we're here. And it's not even her fault. You know, I didn't even understand what she was going through. You know what I mean? So the only thing I'd say to him is just like, don't be so hard on your mum, man, because it's not her fault. You know what I mean? She's in this as well. But I almost felt like, you know, when you're a teenager, you feel a little bit selfish, and you're like, everyone else isn't going through anything, only I'm going through it. You know, I'd just be like, mate, you're not the only one going through it. You know what I mean? That's probably what I'd have told my 16-year-old self. And stop being so frustrated, man. Stop being so because it did get better after that. Like when going to college, it was great.
I think it's hard to tell a 16-year-old person to stop being so frustrated and stop being angry.
Oh, wow. They're just full of tension, aren't they?
Yeah.
I see that now. I see that now with the youngsters.
Because I think like
this is all the hormones kicking in.
It's I think it's obviously this is probably recent experience, obviously being a dad, but like and then also kind of jumping back into my own shoes at 16 years old, because you leave school and you think everything's gonna be great, and you realise that it's not as great as you realise, because now you see your friends who've got jobs and like they're earning money and they're starting to have driving lessons and they're doing different things and like some have been able to get girls and some can't, and so you want it all, and you're not getting any of it because like
like my friends were getting cars and like their mom and dad were paying for driving lessons and all that sort of stuff. It was just really frustrating, or like clothes or trainers and stuff like that, like, you know, and I was almost like, it's your fault, mom, but it wasn't her fault. You know what I mean? It was just that she just got the cards that she dealt with, and she gave me everything I have, you know. And so did my dad. Going back, even my dad, every time he went to prison, he was only trying to better his life for us, really, essentially, as well. Even though he had the flip side of it, he had a problem with alcohol, where it changed his personality. But regardless of that, everything he did, in hindsight, was actually trying to. It was the wrong things, but he had the right intentions behind it, you know. Just didn't work out that way. But
Man,
Right.
I think that's been brilliant again. Thank you so much,
Anthony.
Anthony.
Welcome,
I was about to say, I'm so grateful for you and just like sharing like obviously what you shared today. Because I think you've gone into some real deep stuff there, and I
really
think like
deep stuff.
You didn't have to, but I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you guys listening to me.
No, thank you so much.
It's like a therapy session for me. I actually enjoy it. I actually enjoy talking about it.
But that's the best thing about like we were speaking to earlier about like opening up and stuff. Like it doesn't have to be like, so tell me about your life. It's more of.
See, I enjoyed this. This was a stepping stone in the right direction, and now it's out there. I wanted to do this because it was like the history's been wrote now. If my grandkids ever want to look back and know anything about my life, they can see it. The first 30 years of Granddad's life was wild.
They're like, yo, Granddad, you did that.
You did
exactly. Yo, and I get trouble for not eating my.
There's a lot more, but I won't tell them that bit.
But honestly, but Anthony, cheers, man.
You're welcome.
Really, so much. And thank you again, guys, for tuning in. Like I said, if you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, Down to the Core Podcast, you can also follow us individually at jwright.pt.
And John _online coach. I'm gonna get this one day. And also Down to the Core
with two underscores at the end. So you can follow us on our Instagram page at Down to the Core with 2 underscores at the end. And can you let us know where they can follow you, Anthony?
Primal Performance Gym Dudley.
And listen, one major thing. So if anybody, follow Primal Performance Gym Dudley. Yeah. And if you are actually in Dudley, it's on Wolverhampton Street.
Right next door to the B&M ramp.
Right next door to B&M.
Next to the little door. By Dixie's Chicken as well, isn't it? Yeah, by Dixie's Chicken,
And if you're an old person like me, it's where KFC used to be.
Yes, I'm going to say that's the KFC I used to be.
The old KFC.
The old KFC. That was a good one I used to go to.
So guys, check out Primal Performance.
Awesome.
Amazing gym.
But cheers, guys. Thank you so much. Stay safe. And more importantly, peace.